Welcome to the Peace and Parenting Podcast. I'm Michelle, and I have my longtime clients and loveliest people ever on the podcast. And I feel so lucky to have them here, and they've made this work so great. So I feel grateful that they're here and that I got to, experience them in this realm. Welcome to the show, Danielle and Neal. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Danielle. We have a 5-year-old, almost 6-year-old son named Jax, and we live in Colorado, Rocky Mountain.
Nice. Neal, anything to add to that?
Uh, no, I'm Neal, and we have the sweetest, best little 5-year-old ever. So,
Yeah.
very,
Yeah, you're very lucky. He's a great kid. All right. So how long ago was it that you guys came to me? I can't even remember now. Do you remember?
Um, I was trying to look, and I feel like he was like 2.5, almost 3 when we first started with you.
So
Yeah,
that was several years ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. I think that's about right.
Yeah. Okay. So several years ago when he was 2.5. Well, first of all, tell me what kind of kid Sweet Jack is. What kind of temperament does he have?
Oh, he's very sensitive, but very determined. He's a very strong-willed, highly sensitive little boy. Yeah, he knows what he wants and he's determined to get it.
Yeah. Neal, anything to add?
yeah. I mean, he's determined to do what he chooses, and he was walking at 10 months, and that's not because we're like pushing him to do it. It's because he saw everyone walking and wanted to do that. So that's pretty much how he is with everything.
Yeah. So what kind of problems did that present in parenting? What was hard?
I mean, it was hard. Hard just before he was even born. So, I mean, I was really sick during my pregnancy, and then from the day he was born, it was tough for us. He cried a lot. I mean, looking back now, like I remember like then like thinking, oh, he's sick, something's wrong with him. And now I look back and I'm like, man, that was just his personality, and I just didn't know at the time, being a first time mom, how to manage it. And then as like Neil said, as he got older, he just when he set his mind on something, he was gonna do it. He didn't,
Yeah.
just
Or
doesn't
set his
stop.
mind not to do something.
Yes, exactly. Very much so. Yes.
Neal, anything else you can remember in those early days that made it hard?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that any sort of traditional parenting stuff, if we tried to, I mean, I know he was really young then, but take things away, or any, even like our 1 or 2 times we tried timeout, we could tell right away this was not going to work for a kid like Jackson, and we pretty much were both on board that we needed to find something different.
Yeah. Well, how did he respond to the traditional parenting?
I just have one memory of trying to put him in timeout because Neil's right. I think we tried it twice, and one memory I have was just horrible. I think I stayed in the room with him. I couldn't even leave him there because he would just, scream, yell. He wasn't going to sit in the corner. It just made everything worse. And, I went into parenting wanting to parent a lot different than my parents without, a lot of punishment and just all that. I wanted to just parent 100% different than them. And when I started to see that, I got scared. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to end up like my parents. I'm going to end up, screaming at this kid and, spanking him and just all the things I didn't want to do. And so, I think he was in timeout and I was in there with him. And then finally I just carried him out. I'm like, we're not doing this. I can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't feel good either.
No, it felt terrible. And I could tell we were starting to go down the road I didn't want to go down,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah, you're smart. You're so smart. So, what other things besides timeout did you guys try?
Him being so young, I think timeout and then like Neil said, I think taking toys away, like if he threw them. Um,
Right.
what else, Neil?
We tried,
We
did kind of sort of tried some star charts and some
oh
stuff
yeah.
for, for honestly, I don't think it really did anything for anybody. So,
No.
No,
He's a
no.
determined young kid, and he was not going to be manipulated. That was just
Yeah,
the end of it. Yeah.
yeah.
So how did you feel? What were you guys, what was the feeling like right before you found me? How did you feel about your parenting?
I felt out of control. Like I remember one thing that sticks in my head is that I would go to bed every night and say, tomorrow's going to be different. Tomorrow I'm going to be more patient. Tomorrow I'm going to figure it out. And I noticed like I haven't done that in a long time. Like, sure, I'll have my bad days where I'll be so upset and Neil will have to tell me I'm not a terrible mom, but that's like, one or two times every few months, whereas then it was like every day and every night it was the same kind of stuff.
How did you feel, Neil, about your parenting back then?
um, I yeah, I mean, I didn't feel good about it. I felt like it just didn't feel right. I felt like we needed something different. We didn't know what we were doing or how we could handle a kid like this, and yeah, it just didn't feel good.
Yeah. So when we met and I started talking about all of this stuff, what was your initial reaction? I want Neil to go first.
Well, I wasn't against any of it. It's hard because like when Danielle said he had colic and he was crying a lot, and I look back at that now and I feel guilty and just bad about the whole situation, because in my mind it was like, why is he doing this to me?
Right.
What why why is this happening? How can he do this to me? Doesn't he know like I can't handle this crying? And then with the class and or with our one-on-one and stuff, it was a lot of talk about that and understanding it's not, he wasn't trying to do anything to us. It's just how he was developing and moving through the world. So I think that helped a lot.
Well, I mean, I think you're not alone, Neil, though, at all. I think so many of us are like, why is this kid defying me? Why are they not staying in timeout? Why are they not doing these things? I need them to do these things because I don't know what else to do. You're not
Yeah.
alone. I don't think you're alone at all. What about Danielle, when you started hearing about this kind of method and stuff, what was your initial reaction and what were your thoughts? And
Um, I think I don't know, I was really excited because I felt like I finally had the support. Like I felt so alone in parenting. Everyone that I knew that had children, specifically close to me and my family, they all complied. It was like, oh, just do the star chart, like Neil said, and we weren't there. So I felt so alone. So initially when we started, I finally felt like I had somebody who could relate to me and understand what I was going through, and I wasn't feeling like I was crazy anymore. And then at the same time, though, still had some fear initially because I started to learn that, a lot of the struggles I was having as a parent were based on, my childhood and things that had happened to me. So I still had a lot of fear, like, oh, this will only last so long, and I'm going to go back. I'm going to, end up just like my parents. And, nothing against my parents. I love them, but it's just not how I wanted to raise my child. So,
yeah, yeah. I think that's a big part of it. What percentage would you say is working on your own childhood of
oh,
this work?
yeah, it's, yeah, yeah, a lot.
Yeah. So what about you, Neil? What percentage do you think?
Most of it, I think it all tracks back to that of, every time I do something that doesn't, go in line with our parenting, I'm always like, why did I do that? And it's usually like, well, that's how I was raised, that's how I was brought up.
Yeah. And what was good about the coaching? Tell me the good pieces about the coaching. What was most beneficial?
Oh,
Everything.
yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, honestly, it sounds so cheesy, like to say it was life changing, but I mean, it really was on so many different levels. Like, I mean, it helped me grow as a person individually. It helped me, just be a more patient person, realize that, like, I don't know, that. I am I can parent and I can do this. It gave me confidence. And then just to be able to really sit down and talk about your own child was huge because I feel like when you just like say, "Oh, we'll come with play," it's hard. But if you learn your child, then you know when coming with play works and when you need to show empathy. Like you can't like you got my biggest thing is you got to learn your child and yourself before the tools seem natural, if that makes
Thank you very much. Yes.
sense.
Neal, what do you think? Like, what was good about the coaching?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge podcast fan, and so I listen. I've probably listened to every one of your podcasts ever, but it's still not that personalized feedback where each week something new comes up and you can come back and ask that question and talk about it and really dive deeply into that. And then that makes you start talking about your childhood and other things that have happened. And then it just makes, it helps you connect all the dots.
Yeah, you go down these wormholes sometimes where you're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't see it like that." I think it's like someone on the outside who works in this can see
Yeah.
the blind spots, right? You can't see your own blind spots.
Yeah. Yeah. And it holds you accountable too, because one week you can be like, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to focus on it. And I think if you don't have that constant feedback and someone there, you might give up on it. You might just say, oh, that didn't work that one time, so it's like
Yeah.
just continuously talking about it. Well, why didn't it work? Okay, we'll try it a little bit different next time,
Yeah, I think too, like people will look at a Instagram post or Facebook or buy the book even and be like, "Well, this doesn't work." And I'm like,
yeah.
"Well, it might not actually. If you can't get to the deeper level, it might not fully work."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, obviously we still have our struggles, and as he grows, we have something else we have to tackle, but um, I think we have the more confidence now that we can manage it. We have some skills, and sure, we're not always perfect, but we're seeing a difference in him.
yeah.
We get those
Mhm.
like please and thank yous without even asking. We get, I mean, it melts my heart. He'll just yell from the room, "I love you, mommy," like out of nowhere, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, he's such a sweet boy. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then he has the days where he tells me I'm the worst mom in the world, but it's
Esme still does that, so it's
yeah.
not. Yeah, let's not get crazy. That's normal, right?
Yeah,
What
exactly.
differences, Neil, do you see in Jax?
Yeah, it's more of the same stuff. I mean, I think that he's when I compare him to other kids and stuff, and not that we are around too many other kids, but he just seems so much more open with us. And I think ultimately that's the goal, right? Is getting him connected to us and being comfortable to talk to us about situations in his life. And that's the biggest thing for us is that he'll tell us things about something that happened at school or whatever that he feels like he did bad or something that happened, and his teachers and stuff, they won't even know about it because you know he kept that to himself, but then he came home and told us, and so we're really happy about that.
Yeah, he's not scared. He's not scared to be punished. He's not scared to be shamed. He's not scared to be
Mhm.
embarrassed about it. He'll say like, "Oh yeah, I pushed the kid at school today because they pushed me first, so I pushed him back." And it's like, okay, makes sense, and you're willing to say it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Esme will do that. She'll be like, I left second period, mom. I couldn't take it. I went to the bathroom for like 45 minutes." And I was like, "Oh, okay." That's that
Yeah.
period we didn't need, but it's like she's not scared to say, and then you get to know so much more of your kid.
You're right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard him say to one of his friends was over who lives by us the other day, and his friend was teasing him like, "Oh, you're gonna be in so much trouble, Jax." And he goes, "I don't get in trouble." Like it
Amazing.
was the cutest thing in the world. I just was like, I was like, is that good? Is that not
No, that's great.
good?
It's good because like what Neil said, he's gonna tell you everything.
Right.
He
Yeah. And he does.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
he rats out himself all the time. He'll be like, Mom, I just spilled the milk all over this," or "I just broke," he does. And then, I get a little bit worried about him now because he always says, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And so I just, I have to say to him, it's an accident. Like, you don't have to be sorry. Thanks for saying sorry. But then sometimes I worry, like, I don't know, is he saying sorry too
Sorry
much?
too much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe you curtail the sorry some, right?
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have to say I'm sorry. Those words get overused. That I'm
Right.
sorry kind of be like,
Yeah.
when you apologize to him, I would say things like, "Oh man, that wasn't cool what I did."
Yeah. Yep.
Instead of just the word I'm
Yep.
sorry gets so much repetition
Yes.
in the world. They're probably told to say I'm sorry at school and like it's kind of
Absolutely. Yeah.
everywhere. Does it lose meaning?
Yeah.
That phrase.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Neil and I do a really good job at that when, we apologize to him for something or he sees us apologize to each other, we try to add something to it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry I was rude, or,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to talk to you like that, or whatever it was.
Yeah, so good. Or that was totally my fault. I'm taking
Mm-hmm.
all the responsibility. Just like
Right.
I think that phrase has been like kind of abused a little bit
Right.
by society.
Yeah.
A little bit. What else? What if somebody was gonna do this work? What do you tell them? What are you gonna tell them?
Oh man. Um,
Neil?
Gosh. Yeah, Neil, go ahead. I have a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to one of the things I said earlier, but it's they're not doing these things, acting out and hitting you and crying these things because they want to or because they're trying to defy you. um, they're just offline and they need to be connected to you, and that's the biggest thing, is just keeping that connection with your kid and hoping that they grow up and they can still hold that.
Yeah.
Just let them cry and let them tantrum and let them get those emotions out and just be there for them. I think that's really helped me with my connection with Jax, because I think at the beginning I wasn't allowing him to do that as much. I was kind of like, oh, it's okay, you don't, tamping it
Well,
down.
fine, yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard when you're in a public situation or whatever at the restaurant and they're throwing a big tantrum or crying, but I've just learned to kind of let that go, and the more you can do that, the more um, open and connected they are to you, and I think that just pays dividends, the whole rest of well, hopefully their life. But
Yeah, it does. And the connection I find too, like you fall offline when you're little a lot. When they get older, it kind of stays more. As he gets older, you'll notice like he won't fall offline as much, and that connection will be like, Esme and I can have a fight, and literally the 2 seconds later, we're like, oh my gosh, do you want to go shopping? It just doesn't even phase us anymore because it's so tight. I like
yeah,
how you said that too, like not taking it personally. And I think even one step further is like you have to take your ego completely out of this game. Like you cannot have any ego. It will not work. You have to pretend like you have none and just you're sitting on the bottom floor just witnessing this stuff.
yeah. And we definitely have noticed that at the beginning, those tantrums and stuff, when we let them go, it'd be hour and a half sometimes, and now it seems like when he does have those big things, which are definitely less than they used to be, when he does have them, they're definitely shorter, and then like you said, it's like a flip of 2 minutes later, he's like, I love you,
Yeah.
and
You're like, okay, are you okay? It's like a split personality. What about you, Danielle?
Um, yeah, I guess I just want to say that, like, I mean, we started, like I said, we are very fortunate to start when he was young, but like I don't want people listening to be like, oh, well,
Yeah.
you haven't had the problems yet, because I mean, as you know, Michelle, like he was a hitter, he was a biter. Like I have been bruised by him. He would just flat out refuse to do things. He wouldn't, get out of the car. I mean, there's just a
He
list.
would
I could
run
go
down the
on.
street. I mean, he was just like take off
Oh,
down the street.
yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, it absolutely was not easy. The stuff he was doing at such a young age to, even now when he has those really bad tantrums. I mean, I would just have to say, stick with it. And one thing that I've really been trying to just remind myself is, like, I just ask myself, like, is this worth damaging the connection I have with, my child? So, like, that helps me to let the smaller things go. It doesn't matter, or it helps me to not maybe freak out if something, bad happens or whatever you want to call it. Just, to just take it one step at a time, because it's not worth it. You can address a behavior and have empathy and remorse and understanding and not damage the relationship, you know.
Totally. And I think
And
that is huge. It's like, is the shower worth it? Is the
yeah,
extra snack worth it? Is the
right.
whatever it is that you want to, stick in on, is it worth it? Both
Yeah,
of yours are the same, like, right? Not taking it, it's like relaxing in your parenting almost, like not getting so
sure.
tense about it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll be with other, parents, and, they do, worry a lot about like the food, or are they didn't finish their meal. And it gets hard when, Jax will eat like four things on his plate and be like, I'm done. And I'm like, okay. And then, his cousins, and they're sitting there for an hour, like, you have to eat five more bites. And those are awkward situations, but it's like, I watch that and I'm just like, it doesn't matter. He might eat only candy today, and tomorrow he's gonna eat all vegetables. Like, it's gonna even itself out. It's not
Yeah. And are the
not
5
worth
bites
it.
worth
Yeah,
like getting this huge power struggle over? What are 5
right,
bites going to do for you really in the
right,
scheme of life? Is 5 bites
right,
matter?
right. And it's not like we don't have, boundaries and limits. Like, Jax had, he's a good little boy, I feel like. And he knows, like, if I have to set a limit, or Neil has to set a limit, sure, we might get some feelings, but it still happens. We're not going back on the limit. Like, I think that's key. Like, if you're gonna go in and set the limit, then you set the limit. Like, you got to show them, like, you're sticking in, this is what I'm gonna do, and you have empathy and listen to the feelings, and get through it. And then setting those limits, you know, over time gets easier. But
Yeah.
I think then he trusts you too, that you're going to stick with your limit, and he can have, a meltdown and you'll still be there.
Yeah, the limits are, is that how you feel
Mhm.
about limits, Neil?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think limits are hard. I think they're definitely harder for me than for Danielle. But when I do stick to a limit, or when she does, it's so much easier. I mean, yeah, the feelings will come out and he'll be real upset, but then he's over it, and I think at the beginning it was a little bit harder, but now that we've been doing this for a while, I think that the the limits are important, and they're not as big of a deal anymore.
Yeah, and you don't need a consequence to have a limit. You don't need a punishment to have a limit. You can just have a limit. Like, we're going to bed at 8. You can
Hmm.
cry about it, but we're still going to bed at 8.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, that's it. And yeah, and I think that becomes very tricky for people because they think, oh, if I don't have the consequence, then there are no limits, as if they're
Hmm.
synonymous, right? Which they aren't.
Hmm.
So I'm glad you
Yeah.
guys put that up. Thank you. Any last anything that you want to tell anyone?
No, I think the only thing I would just say again is what I already said, is like, it all makes sense once you learn your child and start putting it together. Like, it
Yeah.
all just makes sense, and you have to be willing to stick with it and know that one thing isn't going to work overnight. You have to just keep trying. Um and I know you always talk about the special time. I think that's huge, especially with Jackson, his personality. Like, he needs that time to be in control and do his own thing. And he asks for it, and he every single day he asks for it 10 times a day. Like, sometimes I have to make it clear that, like, special time isn't just play. Like, do you want to play, or do you want special time?
He wants a whole day of special time.
Yeah.
I want to be in
He
control
does.
all the time.
He does. He'll say to us, "Why is every day all about you guys?" And we're like, "What?" Like,
Yeah,
we
I
just
get
played for
heat,
6 hours.
but that's a temperament, right? That's a certain
Yes,
temperament. Esme is
yes,
that temperament, and I get it. They need control so badly.
yeah,
Yeah, that's why
yeah,
that traditional stuff doesn't work. Any
yeah.
last things for you, Neil?
um, yeah, I mean, I think as you build these connections with your kids, and they start telling you stuff more, um, sometimes it's almost hard, because the other day, uh, Jax said, "Daddy, I have to tell you something," and I'm like, "Okay," like, "I love mommy more than I love you."
This is the best day of my life.
I'm like,
You're
okay.
like, great, thank you. Right.
So like, yeah, I think originally that would have kind of like, made me feel a little jealous or whatever. But now I actually feel good about that for many reasons. But good because he feels comfortable enough to tell me something like that straight to my face, and know that he's not gonna lose me, or I'm not gonna make him feel bad about it, or any of
Yeah.
those. So
That's
yeah.
that's an incredible testament to your bond.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, he's like, Daddy, I don't love you the most. And he's not worried in the least that that's gonna bother you. He knows you're gonna be like, oh well, I
Yeah.
expect you to like mommy better. It's okay.
Yeah.
he,
He knows I'll start bawling, so
Cute.
he, he came back. I still love you, Daddy. I just okay.
Thanks a lot. That is so cute and amazing. You guys are so cute and he's so sweet. And I feel so lucky that you're part of our community and here and doing this work. And your son is amazing. And thank you. Thank you.
yeah, you're not gonna get rid of us. We'll be here forever.
I don't want to get rid of you. You're my people. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for listening to the Peace and Parenting podcast and for being part of this live. And I will see y'all soon.